So, where do we start? So that's always the question. Usually a good place to start when you just have no clue is the power supply. Fortunately, the power supply is really hard to get at in this set, because those electrolytics are they're down. Well, electrolytics are down here. I suppose it could be worse, considering how the rest of the set is. Yeah, they're buried in there deep, but there's not much else in the area. We have 3 multi-section cans. 2 of them are 4-section. It looks like one of them is a 2-section, so we're looking at 10 electrolytic caps down there. A few other electrolytics scattered around. One there, one there. That's probably for sound. Not sure about that guy. I could just blindly start replacing the Bumblebee caps that I have easy access to, which I might start doing just because I know I'm going to replace them anyways, and gives me something to do while I think about how I want to service the rest of the set. As usual, lately I'd like to use adapter caps on these twist locks. And interesting, at least on 2 of them. So the one on the right is on a phenolic base, so the adapter cap should work there just fine. The one on the left is on a metal plate that looks like they thought about using a phenolic base but didn't, but it has a cutout for it, and it looks like there's some rivets there, so I think I could be using an adapter cap there, no issue. It's just the one in the middle where, they didn't use, okay, it's a twist lock cap, but there are no slots in the chassis. Again, they cut out a big opening as if it was going to be on an insulated wafer, but didn't, and they put a twist lock in there and bent the tabs over and tack them in place on the chassis. That's not how you normally install these. Maybe it's a replacement. In fact, that's a very good possibility. If it is, a pretty neat job, though, because it's not obvious that anything's been mangled. Ooh, hey, what is that? What is that? Is that a completely roasted, annihilated resistor? Might be. And that looks like a pretty critical one. It's going from a lug on the right, which would be the negative of the cap, to I think a positive lug on the left, or something like that. Let's look at the Sam's info and see if we can track down what that is. And I'll try to extract it. We can test it and replace it. Well, actually, it looks like the resistor next to it might be toasted too, but maybe one component took out the other. Ah, I see. I took a look at the service info a few days ago in preparation of pulling the chassis, and the power supply looked super conventional, just a 5U4, a couple electrolytics, a filter choke. What's the big deal? However, I now see what the deal is. The center tap on the secondary does not go to ground. There's a 15 ohm resistor between this and ground. What does that mean? It means that this point is negative. They must need that for bias somewhere. That is probably that roasted resistor. And if that is open or way off value, that is definitely going to screw everything up. And of course, lovely Sam's, it's on 3 pages, so we have to... Let's see. So that's got to be that cap. It's on the insulating wafer. So, oh man. Yeah, that's got to be that. Those are the 2 caps on the phenolic base, because the negative on those does not go to ground. You've got to be careful about this kind of stuff. Not all the caps always have their negative going to the chassis. Sometimes they do this. It's really common in radios to generate a negative voltage so you can bias the grids on some of the tubes negative. Okay, so it's the bottommost line, and if we go to the second page, it should be this line. what I'm looking for is, at some point, there's got to be a filter cap that has a negative on that rail and then a positive going to ground, I would think. Oh, damn you, Sams. You make this so hard to read. Yeah, looks like they might also be doing the trick of using the audio output tube as a voltage divider. A little hard to tell. Well, maybe that's it. Although, no, that's not going to the negative rail, but there is a cap that... never mind. I'm confusing myself. Huh. That would be weird if they did not have a filter cap going across that 15 ohm resistor. Anyways, I'll check the parts locator, and it's very likely. And this is where a highlighter comes in handy. Alright, it's the topmost line there. Or I'll snip these pages out and tape them together. A Wallace Telliade would be nice. I'm pretty sure I do not have one for Stromberg Carlson. Alright, I think that's this. I think that's the negative. So it's going through a choke. It's going over here. Focus control. It's a little convoluted. But I do not see any electrolytic anywhere that has a positive going to ground. Alright, fine. Whatever. Alright, parts locator. At least in their parts locators, they have the chassis exactly how I have it. And yep, R114, that is our toasted resistor, or at least one that looks toasted. So, let us extract it and measure. I'll try to measure it in place. I don't know if if I can. Oh yeah, I can see it now, yeah. I can see a green stripe. It's supposed to be 15 ohms. And the one next to it, I can see a yellow. See, the one next to it is R92. I'll look up what that value is too. I'll check both of them. Oh man, even getting in there to test resistor values is difficult, let alone replacing anything. Alright, so the 15 ohm is actually, it's not horrible, it's 20 ohms. What's next to it is supposed to be 470 ohms. It's measuring about 667. So, both have drifted off value. Not enough to, I would think, prevent the entire set from working, but I'm just curious what this gigantic cap is here. 0.25 microfarad, 600 volts. Oh, bumblebees everywhere. I don't know. Hey, there's one new part that's been installed. It's actually the only sign of repair I've noticed so far. That may or may not be original. It looks a little goofy, but everything in this set kind of does. But, yeah, that's the only thing that jumps out at me is like, hey, obviously something's happened there. What an odd thing to would have failed, though, a 2.2 mega ohm resistor. It's not the kind of part that would usually fail. Let's see if that's actually original. God, hard to tell from this photo. It's probably R55. Sorry, I know this is probably really hard to follow as I'm swinging the camera all around. R55. R55 7K? What? Alright. Let me investigate this a bit further, and I'll ponder what to do about the rest of this set. I still want to double check a few things, but pretty sure I found a pretty serious problem here. They have a 2.2 mega ohm 1 watt resistor. That is supposed to be a 7,000 ohm 8 watt wire wound power resistor. That feeds the screen grid on the video amp, the 6AC7. That's 2.2 is not going to cut it. You can see one side of it goes, and there's wires going all over the place. That's going to one of the main power supply rails, and the other side of it goes to that tube. We can see it right there. And there's some major decoupling on the other side of it. 10 mega ohm resistor, 5,000 picofarad, 10K, another 10 microfarad, another 5,000 picofarad. Because you need a really clean voltage here, because you don't want to get any interference in your video signal, which comes off the plate here and goes into the CRT. So, what was somebody thinking? Well, I can tell you what they might have been thinking is whoever was working on this had no clue what they were doing, and they saw there was a part that was maybe obviously burned up or fried, and they just had this part and they threw it in there. Not soldered very well. So there's that. And then I found another problem while trying to trace out that wiring. Oops. Where the heck is this supposed to go? It seems likely it would go up to the switch, which is in worse shape than I realized. One of the contacts is broken off. But if it does go here, I don't know where. So I need to trace that out too. It's just going off into all this mess of stuff. Alright. Something else, the wiring in this set is weird. It's, there's no plastic wiring in this. It's all cloth covered and it's like lacquered on top of that. So it's crispy, you can't flex this stuff at all. Which does not make life much fun if you need to move anything or manipulate anything. Yeah, with my limited service info, it doesn't help much. That's kind of freaky. Check this out. Early coax. It's a wire inside of a spring, and the spring is tacked to the chassis here and there. It's just the same cloth covered wire like the others up inside of it. What a bizarre set. My brain's a little slow today, but eventually I remembered, hey, I have another one of these. I have my set. Now, unfortunately, I got it so long ago, I did not document things as well back then, but I do have one photo of the underside of the chassis. There's a huge power resistor down here. And this wire, it looks like it was going up to a contact that may be broken off of this switch entirely. Anyways, so let's fire this up and see if that made any difference. It's sounding like it's doing more now. Although the screen seems to be completely blank now. Oh, we have no vertical. We did, then we didn't. A little bit of vertical. Well, losing a lot of vertical height isn't so great, but it seems like the tuner's doing more and there's more sound coming through, so that's something, I suppose. Well, since I was already down in this area, I started working my way up, And I've been replacing all the bumblebees and checking resistors, and some of these are seriously baked. This should be 680 ohms. It's more like 1680 ohms. So put a new 3-watt down in there. This guy checks out okay. It's 1200 ohms at I think 10 watts. So I'm going to do another power up, and that's how I'm going to keep going for a while. Basically for lack of a better idea what to do. And I definitely want to start checking more and more of these power resistors. I can see there's a couple big ones in here, because the few I have checked have, aside from this one, the carbon comp ones I should say, have been way off. So yeah, anyways, and the switch tomorrow, it's like 2 in the morning right now, so I'm getting a little tired, and I gotta decipher this switch, and for now I'm just gonna hard code it in one of the positions. I think I'll unmount it, see if I can fix it, because it looks like these terminals are, it's not just that this is bent. In fact, somebody bent that intentionally. These terminals are kind of busted off, and I gotta figure out what that wire is. I really want to get to work because it's a really neat feature, but I may just want to replace this whole switch assembly. Shouldn't be too hard to find a push button that's a DPDT or whatever that translates to. I'm just going to set the camera down over here, point it at the set, and let's try firing it up. Here we go. I believe the area I was working in is mostly the sound, so I'm not expecting any dramatic change. It's the easiest circuits to get at, and I kind of, part of the reason I was doing this too is I just want to get a feel what it's like to work on this set, see what it's like to work with the terminal strips they used, and so on. I really should check the tubes too. I took a break from recapping and checked all the tubes and found a few weak ones and just popped them in, and now I am getting some sound. But I have the mode switch in the position I wouldn't expect it to be. I have it in the high position, as near as I can make out these controls. And it is, like I suspected, kind of tricky to dial anything in. Absolutely nothing on the screen. They call this the picture control. I think that's equivalent to contrast. And then there's our brightness. That control needs some help.
Cleans my entire house for $19.
Horizontal and vertical hold.
They showed up right on time and did my dishes. They even cleaned my window. You just and enjoy it. And I think you will.
It's something. That's with the volume up all the way down. So, not exactly booming. Hey, I'll be honest, I'm probably going to be jumping around for the rest of this project. Probably because I've never worked on anything quite like this before, and partly I'm just trying to have a little bit of fun with it. And it's so different that what I would normally do isn't really going to apply so easily. Well, what I did just do was I dusted off and vacuumed the top, soft brush and a shop vac, and I lubed up the tuning mechanism so it's a little better now. And I noticed that two pieces of twin lead that come in were rubbing up against one side of the dial string, so I moved those out of the way. It's working a little better now. So now I want to go after the horizontal. I want to get that high voltage back. It's a little tricky to get at because it's right underneath here, and these are where we have our two width coils. Well, horizontal linearity large, horizontal damping small, and horizontal size small. I think they might be using slightly different terminology, but that probably translates to width and linearity. I'm not sure what they... Well, I mean, obviously one of them is labeled linearity, and size and width I assume are the same. I'm not sure what damping means. And there's no drive control. Normally there'd be a trimmer capacitor to control the amount of drive signal going to the grid of the horizontal output tube, which is... Oh, that's right, it's mounted horizontally. Boy, it's... It's up there, so I think it's that socket back there. Wonderful. Probably the single most difficult thing to get at is what I want to work on next. Let's see, where's my phone? There's two other things I've been trying to track down. Is there should be a control for horizontal frequency, which might be that coil up there. And there should be some sort of drive adjustment control, but I don't know. Where is it? Let's take a look at the schematic. And then back to this. So I want to replace all these paper caps ASAP. Obviously I can't get at them very easily. I may unmount this assembly. I mean, that's easy enough to do. There's two sheet metal screws holding this bracket in, but the wires going to these coils are probably a little on the fragile side. So if I do that, I want to be really careful. And I just realized that two of those caps, two we're looking at right there, are 0.01 microfarad caps, so right off the AC line. So those are our line filter caps. I want to replace those with safety caps. So those aren't going to be part of the horizontal or damper circuitry. But this is, and that is, and I'm pretty sure that guy is. I think that's a 0.082 and a 0.033. Every late 40s black and white TV seems to have a 0.033 microfarad cap in the horizontal circuitry and a 0.1. I think that's because a lot of them use the same flyback and basic circuitry. And somebody figured out, probably RCA, what caps to use to get the right resonance for the horizontal retrace time interval and all that, and that's one of the key component values, so you see it over and over and over again. I also want to double check, is this power resistor correct? It looks a little suspect. There's a chunk missing from the coating. It looks different than the other power resistors in here, so I'm curious, is that an old hack repair? Is it still any good? Okay, so that's what I want to work on next, is replacing the caps behind these coils and up, up in there. Starting to run into some headaches, or at least a headache on this set. I was able to detach this bracket, and there's some pretty stiff wires attached to it, so actually it doesn't move much, so I don't have to worry about these wires breaking off. But I was able to move it enough to clip out those line filter caps. I'm about to reinstall the new ones. But before I do that, I was working over on this side. Just removed the 0.033 microfarad cap, and when I removed it, I discovered this guy, which is not on the parts placement diagram, and it's not on the schematic. I can't quite tell if that's yellow or green, in other words 100K or 1 meg. I'll double check the measurement. I think it was like 600K or something, which does not help matters at all. And it makes no sense as to where it is in the wiring. On one end I was able to confirm by tracing out the wiring goes to this point right here. And there's that cap I was about to replace. The other end of it, as near as I can make out, goes to this control. It's this red wire. It goes to the side of it where the center wiper is attached to one outside leg. That is vertical linearity large. Okay, here are the two vertical linearity controls. Well, two wires where the center wiper and connect together goes to ground. Not a 1 meg resistor going to this point here. And if it was this control, the two attaching together should go to the size switch. So that makes zero sense. I was thinking, okay, well maybe it's actually the height control, because I think that's the boost voltage. And quite often the boost voltage, which is higher than B+, would go to the vertical height control. So if we look at the vertical size, and look where these two are connected together, and trace this out and go around, it does go to that. There's no 1 meg resistor, but at least it does go to that point. So are these controls mislabeled? Because this is size large, and they have size small way over here, and the two linearities next to each other. You would think the two size would go next to each other than the two linearities. I need to trace out this wiring more. I'm looking through the SAMs. I don't think they have a photo of the back of it with the controls labeled, which is a little annoying. But they do. Let's see, do they label the controls? It looks like mine where there's a big fat control on the bottom. Well, that would make more sense. And maybe they threw in a 1 meg, because if you look at this resistor, like vertical size, it's 2.5 meg resistor. Oh! Wait a minute, where's the other vertical size control? They have vertical size control 2, where's vertical size control 1? Let's hold. Oh, it's way over here. Vertical size. Okay, that must be this guy, because it's a big wire wound pot, and they show a 100 ohm resistor here. Okay, so I think that is actually vertical size 2. Alright, so that's why I make these videos and talk these things through. Because you're crazy just staring at stuff by yourself. Okay. I still don't know what value that is, but it's probably, well, no, I don't know. I don't know what it should be. I looked around for more service info online. All I found is that riders. I printed out the rider schematic, which is microscopic. But on this, the large vertical size control, there is a resistor next to it. I can't read that value, but I can go on my computer and at least zoom in on this. I think that's 39K, 390K. Not what I found in the set, but okay. Man, that's hard to read. Now, this is in volume 4. I did have a full set of the rider service info. They were in rough. Some of the volumes were in rough shape. I think some of them were missing pages. I ended up giving most of them away, but I did keep the first 6 volumes. Of course, there's volumes in storage right now, so I can't pull it out, but I'm pretty sure I do have a actual hard copy of this. What difference does that make? They're big, so it would be physically larger than this, and rather than being a scan, it would be the original, so it's probably higher quality and easier to read. So, I might be going to my storage locker in a few days, in which case I'll try to retrieve volume 4. It may maybe you'll save me a little bit of sanity if I have something I can read better. With this resistor in circuit, it was measuring about 600K. I clipped out one end and measured it, and it was about 1.2 meg. So it was definitely being affected by being in circuit by other values. It being a little higher than 1 meg is a pretty good indicator that this is a 1 meg resistor, even though it looks very, very yellow to me. So this is definitely worth going through and double checking all that. So I'm going to replace that with a new 1 meg resistor. Alright, I finished up work in this corner and down there on the audio amp. Did not get up in that area by the horizontal output tube yet. However, I have my Raster back, and I think the sound is a bit better now. Still really no picture. But the sync is so far off, it's kind of hard to tell anyways. Let's see which is. The outside's horizontal. There's something there. This is kind of a dark bar that you can kind of make go back and forth. That's probably the sync interval. Anyways, so onward and upward. It's a good sign, and I'm starting to get a little more familiar with this set as I go. Definitely having two sets of width and linearity and height controls is really confusing, and I haven't sussed out the switch yet, and I still have the one wire disconnected, which could very well be screwing me up with, well, I was going to say with the sync, but no, those circuits affect the actual size of the image. The sync circuit is separate. So anyways, next. Since I have high voltage back, I'm kind of inclined to not do the horizontal output tube socket area next, and rather focus more on the vertical and the power supply. The vertical amp, where is that? It's kind of, yeah, it's over there. These are a 6C4 and a 12AU7. It's kind of a goofy circuit. Where are we at? Yeah, 6C4 for a vertical oscillator. That's a little odd. And then they double up a 12AU7 for the vertical output. A more typical thing would be a 6SN7 for the vertical oscillator, and maybe a 6W6 or 6AQ5 or some type of beam power tube for the vertical amp, not 12AU7. Anyways. You know, I turned the setback on. I haven't actually tried adjusting any of these controls. Let's see if the size and linearity controls actually do anything. And there's the sync separator phase inverter. Since we don't have horizontal or vertical sync, that would be a good place to focus. Although, since the sound is weak and there's not much video definition, I have a feeling we're really lacking gain, which means the sync circuit may be working okay. We just don't have enough signal getting through the IF and the tuner. Alright, so yeah, it does seem like these controls are mislabeled. This bottommost one, it does say focus, and it most definitely does affect the focus. The next one, it says linearity, but it sure seems like height to me, or size. This one does also say this is supposed to be vertical linearity. when you're in the large mode. I don't know what mode we're in, but it's doing something. We may very well be stuck in the large mode. Unless I wasn't expecting. This is a small control and it's also doing something. Oh. Ooh. That was vertical size small. But adjusting that made very bad things happen. Although the picture kind of me monkeying with those controls seems, hey, there's actually almost kind of an image there. Yeah. It's hard to get a lock. But, yeah, we do have reception.
Not now. Okay.
Cool. This is why it's really nice to be able to get something on the screen, because now we can use this as a troubleshooting aid. Obviously, the sync is crap. And we don't have enough gain, so the image is really washed out. But stuff is basically working. The controls do stuff. And we can continue troubleshooting and replacing spec parts. Now, I gotta say, I've also been finding resistors that are horribly out of tolerance. One in particular, don't recall where it went exactly, but basically all of these were really far off. That's why I replaced them. I think this 330 was like 600. I found one of these that was like 4 times the value it was supposed to be. Oh yeah, the 220 up here was like 600 or 700K. So I'm going to have to go through and check all the resistors for sure. Well, after thinking about trying to work on the recessed area, I decided to take the plunge and I removed one of the sides. Hopefully I won't come to regret that decision. Most of the screws are sheet metal screws from the outside that just went into all these various points, but there were a few coming from the inside out, like one that held this support for the high voltage lead and this wiring harness. Only will be too hard to take or to reattach. Oh, and the front does come off the set. That's in the disassembly instructions. The speaker then will be unsupported. You have to disconnect that. I think at some point somebody did, because what do you know, at least one of the screws that holds the front to the chassis is missing. But anyways, so what do we got now? Now, I think I can pretty well maybe I'll do it to the other side too. The other side is definitely more complicated, because vertical output transformer, I think it's a filter choke, those are mounted to the side panel. So that's not so easy, but doing this side lets me get at a lot of stuff. I can get at all the IF stuff, the sync stuff, and the horizontal output. What's down here is power supply filter caps and the vertical oscillator and vertical output, which I do want to work on, but yeah, anyways, let's focus on this stuff for now. Still a little awkward. as this side and this side converge, it gets really pretty crazy down in there. But this is a lot better. And we can also see inside the high voltage box now, and I did not know there was a cap in there. Oh, I think that's a replacement maybe. Huh. Oh, yeah, there's the drive control. Okay. Yeah, alright. So normally it'd be a doorknob cap. That's a 500 picofarad, 10,000 volt cap. That kind of looks like maybe it's not so good anymore. The end doesn't look too healthy there. I think that's the only part inside there. Anyways. Yeah, so I'll start working here, maybe over in this area.